Welcome back, artists. In this video, I'm going to do this painting of wild roses. I believe these are wild roses. This is for my friend Melissa, is her nickname. She sent me this photograph of these photos down near where she lives. And she's a very good artist herself, and I'm going to show her how I would approach this subject matter. In the original photograph, these flowers are actually red. They appear black because I print everything out on a black and white printer. I do that intentionally because I like to show or see the values that are in any reference photograph that I use. So with that in mind, I like this overall design, the cluster of pretty blooms and the leaves around them. I'm going to make it a little bit more interesting. And what I decided to do was this preliminary sketch and make it more of a Western type theme. So we'd have the basic wild rose bush down here. Mel's favorite color is pink, so I'll put in pink blossoms. Again, connecting shapes frequently throughout, and whenever you connect small shapes and make them into larger shapes, they become more interesting and easier for the eye to see at distance. I like the idea of the fence post here and some barbed wire coming off of it, and so I like this basic overall composition. This is what I think I'll do. So I'll set this off, just off the camera here, and rough it out in here. Put my fence post up about here, come down about like this. I'll sketch it in first, and then basically some collection of blooms here coming down. I apologize if this isn't picking up well in the camera here. I'm just going to really lightly sketch it so that it's easier to erase if I need to. A few more down here, some dark shapes in there. Make sort of interesting irregular outside edges. Objects are defined by their outside edges, so I want to pay attention to how those look. Bring this down here, just intermittently through here. This is just a very rough sketch. I will come back and with my brush, and I think I might do some pen and ink with this, or do a line. And then up here, high on the post, about here, have my staples would be, where the barbed wire would be. Okay. Now that's very light, I realize, and not the easiest to see on the camera, but I just want to basically block in some of the shapes. Okay, so this is my zebra blue ink pen, just a regular fountain pen, blue ink. I don't know why blue, I just like blue, so I just, on a whim, I'm thinking I'm going to use blue. So I'll come in here over my pencil lines. Now the ink in this pen is water soluble, and whenever you're doing pen and ink work, the important thing is to know whether your ink is permanent or water soluble. Either one is fine, just so long as you know the behaviors, the characteristics of it, so that you can plan ahead. So again, I'm just going to put some of these dark areas in here. Part of why I'm using this blue ink is I just want to come in here with darker paint here just shortly. This will dissolve somewhat and blend in with my painting. So I'll have my blooms coming down here, leaves in through. I break up a little bit of this with some intermittent leaves. This is just very rough sketching. Just giving myself reference points and landmarks. I'm going to have my source of light off the upper left page, off the page at 10 o'clock. As you know, as you can see, I'm left-handed. General rule of thumb is that unless you put the source of light in the painting itself, for left-handers like me, the best thing to do is to, by default, have your off the page at 2 o'clock. So since my source of light is off the page at the upper left, my fence post then on this side will be the shadow side of my fence post. All right, we'll put our fence staple in here. Other one down here, and at the end I'll probably just come through with a liner brush and put in my barbed wire. Might have a little bit of color here. It's an old fence post. Okay, I got the basic idea. So the blooms coming through here. Right, here we go. There's a preliminary sketch. Now I can erase the pencil lines. It makes it a little bit brighter. I think I'll do that because I'm going to make the flowers pink, but you don't necessarily have to do that. So to make the pink blooms brighter, I'll go ahead and erase the pencil line. All right, there's my pencil lines erased. I think I've got almost all of them. If there's any left over, it's irrelevant. They're just very small. I'll come back in here now and put in some watercolor graphite. I really like watercolor graphite. This material is just the same as the number 2 lead pencil that I started off with. It's been chemically treated to dissolve in water. And as you can see how the ink is blue, the blue ink there, it runs with the water. I'm perfectly fine with that. I think it adds a little bit of interest, believe it or not. Again, this is the shadow side of my fence post. Okay, now I'm just going to block in. By omission, I leave my light areas in watercolor. Paint the darks first. We move from darks to light. That's the opposite, the inverse way that you paint in oil paintings. I have a little bit of the ground over here. showing through. Now, what I'm doing here and doing this is establishing my lights and darks, just blocking into big shapes. I like to work quickly, work sort of fast and loose. Gives it a sense of immediacy. I think it makes it a little more interesting. I'll vary my darks a little bit here and there, because the dark areas will be where the green leaves are at. It'll be darker than the pink blossoms. Okay. All right. Again, my source of light is the upper left corner. Darker sides on the shadow sides. The dark sides underneath the pink blooms here, and that side of the fence post. So, okay, that should read properly like I want it to read. All right, so there's my intermittent layer of watercolor graphite. Now I'll come back in and sort of block in some of this color. And I really like this watercolor graphite. When I discovered this several years ago, it helped me tremendously. And if you are struggling with getting your values correct, which is very common for many artists, I struggled with it early on too. I found taking that intermediate step that I just did, the adding in the watercolor graphite, forcing myself to look at the lights and darks and the values, where's my source of light, helped me tremendously. All right, and I'm going to come in here as well a little bit. Now there is a certain amount of lifting off that is going on of the under watercolor graphite. So I want to minimize the number of times I go over the paper. Just going to get it enough so that it becomes believable as leaves. Sort of random. And now to help myself out a little bit too, I'm going to scrape through some of these. Scraping like this is really fun to do, but you have to get your timing right. It's got to be about half wet, half dry. And then it's a success. If you're too soon, it will backfill. You won't see the scrape line. If you're too late, it won't scrape at all. So I'm getting, see like that, a little bit too wet right in there. Starting to backfill some. There we go. That's about right. You can see my lines. Okay, so that breaks up my colors a little bit. Adds a little more interest. Now, let's come back with our pink. Again, I'm going to connect these all. Watercolor painting, the paint goes wherever the water goes. So in many respects, I'm just controlling where I'm putting it. The technique I'm using here is wet on dry. My paper is dry, so until I touch it with my brush, it's not going to run on me unless I paint outside here like this. And this is fun to do. I paint outside, intentionally paint outside the lines a little bit. Object has a little bit of a lost edge to it, makes it a little bit more interesting. I'll just block in here real quick, get some more of this pink on here. There we go. Paint outside the lines a little bit here and there. All right, now on my shadow side, I'm going to come back with alizarin crimson, drop in a little bit here, and you can see that the color's starting to run a little bit. I want it to be more pink and less red, so I'll lift off a little bit here. Linger a little bit with the piece and connect the shapes and invites more human interaction. Okay, we're going pretty well there. Now, in the photo, I had yellow centers in these roses. I'll dab a few of these in here a little bit, just periodically. Instead of such a bright lemon yellow, make it more of a golden color. I might touch a little bit of quinacridone burnt orange here. Those, overall, I like that. I like the way the flowers look. Now we can tweak them a little bit maybe later on, but for the, now let's work on our fence post. This is just raw sienna, and again, just like with the flowers, painted right over my watercolor graphite. My shadow side, I make it a little darker here. Put a little bit of grass in that here too. That's coming together nicely. I like that. I might scrape a little bit of grain in the wood here, but I gotta let it dry just a little bit more. It's a little too wet right at the moment. All right, it doesn't look like it wants to scrape very much. That's okay. All right. I'll do the barbed wire last. So now let's do the sky. And just any loose sky will work here. I'm going to make it a bright sunny day. So I'll put some blue at the top, and then I'm going to shift the values as we get down closer to the bottom of the piece. I always love this sky blue, which is really a cerulean blue, and cobalt mix. I use it very frequently for sky mixes like this. I think those two colors complement one another very well. And I am intentionally being very sloppy and wet here. Okay, so good. I've got darker up towards the top of my sky, getting lighter as I move down towards the bottom. And then, since the sky is here, I'm going to lift off a little bit real quick. There we go. Put it on a little bit stronger, then I can lift off a little bit. Paint a little. That will help tie the color a little, unify the color a little bit, because I've got so much blue up in the sky. And I'll use a little cobalt down here in the leaves, maybe a little bit on the fence post. Okay, I like that. I still got to do my barbed wire yet. This is a sword dagger brush, 1/4 inch sword dagger. It's cut at an angle like this. I like it, and it makes a more of a random line as opposed to a liner brush. It's called a liner brush in the United States, a rigger, R-I-G-G-E-R in Britain. Same brush, just long, bristles. Originally, it was created by the British to show rigging on a sailing ship. I'm going to come back in here with my quinacridone burnt orange, load up my brush, barbed wire. All right, I have my fence staple here. Let's come down through there like that. And as I did my drawing, run it off the page. And then where the barbs are at, I'm going to put in just a little bit of cobalt blue, fence staple. This is just so it reads like it's barbed wire to the human eye. I'm just putting in little dabs here, as you can see. And maybe just have fun. I'll add a little calligraphy here, some weeds and grasses, just a little bit of added interest. Right, I like that. I think that's real pretty. Let's compare it to my initial sketch. Fence post coming down, glimpse of wild roses down here at the bottom, connecting my small blooms into larger blooms, the barbed wire coming off the fence post. Same thing we have basically here, the fence post coming down, connecting my blooms, the darker green, my barbed wire coming down, and then a nice open loose sky in the background to help tie it together. Touch the same sort of blue down on the blooms. I like that. And here's the original photograph, the blooms together, the yellow centers. Yeah, I like that. All right, well there we go. There's my wild rose painting for my friend Mel, and I'll let this dry. I'll sign it, then I'll post it online and share it with my friends and let my friend Mel know about it. Thank you very much, everybody. Please give me a thumbs up, please subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.